The silence in the house was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. It had been like that since Maria left, a heavy blanket of quiet in our suburban home. Every little sound echoed, amplified by the emptiness. I could hear the refrigerator's constant hum, a low, mechanical thrum that used to blend into the background noise of our lives. Now, it was a reminder of what wasn't there. Sometimes I'd watch the dust motes dance in the sunbeams that cut through the living room window, little specks of light moving in a world that felt completely still. And then there was the ghost of her favorite tea, a faint, sweet, flowery smell that would catch me off guard sometimes, making me stop whatever I was doing and just breathe it in. It was a cruel kind of comfort. My sorrow was a physical thing, a constant ache in my chest. I felt untethered, like a boat cut loose from its moorings, just drifting. The world kept going. Cars passed on the street. Neighbors mowed their lawns, but I was stuck, suspended in a bubble of isolation. It was just me and the quiet. Then the dreams started. At first I dismissed them as just grief playing tricks on my mind, a way for my subconscious to process the loss. But they grew more vivid, more real, like stepping into another room. Maria was always there. She never spoke, not with words, but she communicated. Sometimes it was a gentle touch, a hand on my arm that felt so real, I'd wake up reaching for her. Other times, it was through luminous images, glowing symbols that shifted and changed, conveying feelings and ideas without a single sound. I'd wake up with a warmth lingering on my skin, a feeling of her presence that stayed with me long after the dream faded. It was more than just memory. It was a connection, a profound, undeniable connection that made me wonder if there was more to these dreams than just my own mind. After a while, the dreams weren't the only strange thing. Little coincidences started happening, subtle at first, then more and more obvious. I'd be thinking about something specific, and then a bird, a cardinal usually, would land right on the windowsill and just stare at me, almost like it was listening. Or an object would fall in a peculiar way, like a book sliding off a shelf and landing open to a page that had exactly what I needed to read at that moment. I'd walk past a coffee shop, and a snippet of conversation would drift out. Words that directly related to a thought I'd just had. It was like an unseen hand was subtly guiding things, or maybe even orchestrating them. My skepticism, which had always been pretty strong, started to crack. A cautious curiosity began to take root. Then came the numbers. They started appearing everywhere. 11:11 on the clock, 3:33 on a license plate, 777 on a receipt from the grocery store. At first, it was a novelty. Oh, look, another one, I'd think. But it became persistent, almost insistent. I'd glance at my phone, and it would be 11:11. I'd be driving, and the car in front of me would have 333 in its plate. It was unsettling. It felt like I was being watched, or maybe more accurately, addressed by some unknown force. These weren't random occurrences anymore. They felt deliberate. Nature seemed to get in on it too. During my walks, I started seeing things that just didn't make sense. Strange light formations in the sky, not like anything I'd ever seen before. Not planes, not stars, not even fireworks. Just shimmering, moving lights. Cloud patterns would form into shapes that felt meaningful, almost like messages. And the animals, they'd act in atypical ways. A squirrel would stop in the middle of the road and just look at me, unmoving, for a full minute before scampering off. It was as if the natural world was reflecting an inner turmoil, or perhaps delivering an external message. I started to feel, deep down, that these weren't just random events, but purposeful signals. And then, the scent. The sudden, inexplicable return of Maria's distinct perfume, or the smell of her favorite jasmine flowers, in places where they absolutely shouldn't have been. I'd be in the middle of the living room, and a wave of her scent would wash over me, clear as day. It was a powerful sensory trigger, bringing both a sharp pang of grief and a profound sense of mystery. Was it just my memory playing tricks, or was it a direct communication, a whisper from beyond? The line between reality and something more started to blur. All these experiences piled up, one on top of the other, creating a growing unease. It wasn't a bad feeling, not exactly fear, but a sense of being on the edge of a revelation. I could feel an internal shift happening. I was no longer just a passive observer of these strange events. I was becoming an active seeker of understanding. My perception of reality was changing, fundamentally. I was starting to realize that the world I thought I knew was much, much bigger. A deep, intuitive pull started to guide me, a sense of destiny unfolding. It was like an unspoken invitation, leading me towards something unknown, something profound. There was a mysterious sense of anticipation, as if I was preparing for an inevitable encounter. I felt chosen, guided towards a specific purpose, though I had no idea what that purpose was yet. All I knew was that something big was coming, and I was being led directly to it. This growing sense of an unseen hand, this feeling of being guided, slowly but surely directed my attention towards something I'd never really thought much about before: the Dead Sea Scrolls. It was sudden, this fascination, almost like a switch flipped in my brain. One day I was just living my life, and the next, I felt an inexplicable pull towards these ancient texts. It wasn't just a fleeting interest, it was a feeling of being drawn in, an intellectual curiosity quickly morphing into an obsessive quest. I knew they were historically and spiritually significant, but now, it felt like they held something personal for me, something vital. I dove headfirst into researching everything I could find about them. My days became a blur of scholarly articles, documentaries, and even the more fringe theories surrounding the scrolls. I learned about the Qumran community, the Essenes, and the mystical interpretations of their writings. I wasn't just looking for facts. I was searching for something beyond the academic understanding, something that resonated with the strange experiences I'd been having. I felt like I was looking for a hidden message, a key to unlock the mysteries that had started to surround my life. The more I read, the more I felt like I was on the right track, even if I couldn't articulate why. One afternoon, during one of my aimless drives through the city, I found myself in a part of town I rarely visited. Down a narrow street, almost hidden between a dry cleaner and a defunct bakery, was an obscure, dusty old bookshop. It looked like it had been there for 100 years, untouched by time. The peculiar atmosphere inside was immediate: dim lighting, the heavy, sweet scent of old paper and leather, and a silence that felt ancient. It was the kind of place where you felt like time itself slowed down. I wandered through the narrow aisles, my fingers trailing over forgotten titles, until my gaze landed on a specific unmarked book on a high shelf. It almost seemed to call to me. The book itself was a cryptic volume. It was an antique, leather-bound, with no clear title or author on its weathered spine. It looked incredibly old, well-handled, but also somehow preserved. Inside, the pages were thick and yellowed, filled with faded diagrams, strange symbols, and passages that seemed to allude to the Dead Sea Scrolls. But these passages went beyond any known translations I had encountered in my research. They hinted at something more, a deeper layer of meaning that wasn't public knowledge. Holding it, I felt an unsettling sense that this book was not meant for public consumption, that it was a secret, hidden away for a reason. As I studied the book, a growing sensation of being watched started to creep in. It wasn't a sinister feeling, not like I was in danger, but more like an intense, focused attention. I'd feel eyes on my back, a subtle pressure in the air around me. I'd turn quickly, but there would be nothing there. Was it just my imagination, fueled by the strange contents of the book and my recent experiences? Or was it a genuine presence, something unseen observing my every move? I kept debating it in my head, trying to rationalize it away, but the feeling persisted, becoming almost constant. That night, I had another vivid dream, but this one was different. This time, the dream directly involved the Dead Sea Scrolls. I saw fragments of them, not just as texts, but as glowing pieces of light. Specifically, I saw missing lines within the fragments, passages that weren't in any of the translations I'd studied. These lines weren't just glowing. They seemed to pulse with an ethereal light, radiating importance. The dream's message was clear, delivered not in words, but in a profound feeling. The scrolls held a deeper truth, a truth that was incomplete in our current understanding. It was like a puzzle, and I was missing critical pieces. The recurring numbers and synchronicities, which had started weeks ago, now intensified, and seemed to point directly to my research. Specific words or phrases from the cryptic book, or my Dead Sea Scrolls research, would appear in completely unrelated contexts. I'd hear a snippet of a conversation on the radio that perfectly echoed a thought I'd just had about the Essenes. I'd see a number sequence that matched a page number in the antique book. It was like a coded message, a trail of breadcrumbs leading me deeper down this path. I was no longer just observing. I was being guided, very specifically, towards something. There was a growing sense of anticipation, a feeling that my search was nearing its end. The air around me seemed to crackle with an unseen energy, a subtle hum that I could almost hear. It wasn't just in my home anymore. It felt like it was everywhere I went. I felt like I was walking towards a precipice, a moment of profound change. The realization dawned on me that the answers I sought would not come from traditional sources, not from libraries or scholarly papers alone. They would come from something else, something entirely unexpected. My journey, it seemed, was about to take a turn into the truly extraordinary. The truly extraordinary began subtly, almost gently. It started with light, not a bright sudden flash, but an ethereal glow that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. It wasn't like a lamp or sunlight. It was an internal luminescence, shifting through colors I couldn't quite name, almost alive in its movement. This light often appeared in the periphery of my vision, a soft shimmer in the corner of a room, a fleeting gleam just beyond what I was directly looking at. The moment I tried to focus on it, to pin it down, it would vanish, leaving me wondering if I had truly seen it, or if my mind was playing tricks on me. It was like trying to catch smoke with my bare hands. But it was there, a recurring, beautiful, and unsettling phenomenon, always just out of reach. Along with the light came sounds, faint and almost subliminal at first. I'd hear whispers, not clear words, but a murmur of voices that seemed to be speaking in an unknown language. It wasn't a language I recognized from any human tongue. It felt ancient, possibly alien, or perhaps a language I had forgotten from some deeper part of my being. Sometimes there would be a soft chime, a pure, resonant tone that seemed to vibrate not just in the air, but through my very core, a feeling of sound rather than just hearing it. The struggle to discern reality from imagination became a constant battle in my mind. Was grief making me hear things, or was something truly trying to communicate? Then came the more physical manifestations, things that were harder to dismiss as figments of my imagination. There were sudden, localized drops or rises in temperature in specific areas of the house. I'd walk into the kitchen and feel a palpable chill, like walking into a cold storage room. Even though the thermostat was set to a comfortable temperature and the rest of the house was warm. Other times, a sudden warmth would envelop me, a comforting heat that lasted only a few seconds before dissipating. It was a physical sensation of an invisible presence, subtly affecting the environment around me, leaving no doubt that something was happening. Objects started appearing out of place. Nothing dramatic, no flying furniture, but small, everyday things. My car keys, which I always left on the hook by the door, would turn up on my bedside table. A book I had been reading would be open to a different page than where I'd left it, sometimes even marked with a bookmark I hadn't used. These weren't random occurrences. They often seemed to be in patterns or arrangements that felt deliberate, almost like a subtle rearrangement of my world. It was a playful, yet purposeful interaction, as if someone or something was leaving little notes for me, letting me know I wasn't alone. It created a growing sense of being observed and subtly interacted with in my own home. One night, I had a powerful lucid dream. It wasn't like the symbolic dreams before. This one felt incredibly real, like I was truly there. In the dream, a shimmering, humanoid figure stood before me. It wasn't threatening. In fact, it exuded an aura of immense knowledge and calm. Its form was indistinct, made of light and shifting colors. But I knew it was a figure, a being. The dream conveyed a sense of imminent physical contact, a crossing of thresholds. It wasn't a warning, but a premonition, a preparation for what was to come. I woke up with a feeling of awe and a strange anticipation. The synchronicities, which had been intensifying, now occurred with such frequency and precision that they could no longer be dismissed as mere coincidence. They often directly related to my immediate thoughts or questions. I'd be pondering a specific passage from the cryptic book, and within minutes a billboard outside my window would display a word or phrase that directly echoed my internal dialogue. It was almost like a direct response, a cosmic dialogue beginning. These weren't just signs, they were conversations, guiding me, affirming my path, telling me I was on the right track. Then came the physical sensations, subtle but undeniable. Fleeting touches, a gentle pressure on my shoulder when no one was there, a brush against my arm as I walked through an empty room, a sudden, fleeting warmth on my skin like a hand briefly resting there, only to vanish the moment I tried to pinpoint its source. There was no visible origin for these sensations, and it created a profound sense of disorientation mixed with wonder. The boundaries of my perceived reality were blurring, and I found myself questioning everything I thought I knew about the physical world. The cumulative effect of these experiences led to a distinct, palpable shift in the atmosphere of my home. It wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was a physical sensation, a humming vibration in the air, a sense of immense energy that seemed to emanate from the very walls. The quiet suburbs, my once empty house, now felt charged, alive with an unseen presence. It was no longer a question of whether something was happening. It was happening. The undeniable sense that the moment of direct, undeniable contact was at hand grew stronger with each passing hour. I knew, with a certainty that transcended logic, that my journey into the extraordinary was about to take its most significant turn yet. I felt poised on the edge of a new reality, ready for whatever was coming. The air thickened in my living room, not with smoke or dust, but with a palpable energy, like the static before a lightning strike. A soft hum vibrated through the floorboards, a sound I felt more than heard, and a faint, sweet scent, like honeysuckle mixed with ozone, filled the space. It wasn't a crash landing, no dramatic entry, but a shimmering, silent appearance. One moment, the corner of the room was empty. The next, a figure stood there. This was it. The culmination of all the signs, the dreams, the impossible synchronicities. The entity had arrived. It wasn't monstrous or grotesque, nothing like the aliens from movies or comic books. Instead, it was an elevated, almost ethereal presence. Tall and slender, its form seemed to be made of light, with an iridescent, translucent skin that glowed from within, a soft, shifting spectrum of colors. It stood taller than any human, its limbs long and graceful. There was no discernible mouth, no nose, just smooth, elegant planes on its face. But its eyes, those were what truly captured me. Large and dark, they held an intelligence that felt ancient, profound, and yet there was an undeniable empathy in their depth. They seemed to look into me, through me, and beyond me, understanding everything without a single word being spoken. Communication wasn't through sound, but an instant, seamless transfer of thoughts and emotions directly into my mind. It was like a download, a perfect understanding without the clumsy filter of language. There was no need for words. Its presence alone conveyed a profound sense of calm and reassurance, completely dispelling any fear I might have felt. My mind, which had been racing with a million questions, suddenly settled into a quiet, receptive state. I felt understood, seen in a way I never had before. The being, without any physical movement, gestured towards the cryptic book I had found in the dusty old shop. And then, as if from thin air, ancient scroll fragments appeared. Not just one or two, but a small collection, hovering gently in the space between us. These fragments were unlike any I had seen in my research. They glowed with an inner light, emanating an ancient energy that resonated with the humming in the room. It was a feeling of destiny, a deep-seated knowing that this meeting, this moment, was not just chance, but something preordained, meticulously orchestrated through time and space. The alien began to read the scrolls, not with a voice, but with projections of light and images directly into my mind. It was a language of pure concept, a complex tapestry of symbols, emotions, and raw knowledge, woven together in a way that was far beyond human linguistic comprehension. It wasn't just seeing words. It was experiencing their meaning, feeling their historical weight, understanding their philosophical depth. My mind expanded, stretched to accommodate this influx of information, feeling vast knowledge being downloaded into my consciousness at an incredible speed. It was overwhelming, yet perfectly clear. The being focused on specific missing lines within the scrolls, passages that were either intentionally omitted by human hands or lost to the ravages of time. These lines, unlike the others, were illuminated with a brilliant golden light. They weren't just translated. They were imbued with their original meaning and context, showing how they connected to the surrounding text, filling in gaps in understanding that had puzzled scholars for centuries. The profound impact of these revelations began to unfold within my mind, shifting my entire perception of history, religion, and humanity itself. The initial messages focused on humanity's true origins, a story far more ancient and complex than any earthly history or religious text I had ever encountered. It wasn't just about Adam and Eve or primordial soups. These were hints of cosmic ancestry, a lineage tied to stellar civilizations, to universal consciousness itself. Images flashed through my mind: distant galaxies, nebulae swirling with nascent stars, and then a gentle seeding of life on a vibrant young planet. It was an understanding that human potential was vastly underestimated, that our roots reached far beyond Earth, connecting us to a grander galactic family. As the alien continued to project these truths, a sense of prophecy began to settle over me. The unfolding narrative felt like a glimpse into a grand cosmic plan, a blueprint for existence that stretched across eons. The alien's presence radiated a sense of immense purpose and a profound connection to humanity's fate. It was clear that this being, and perhaps others like it, had been observing, guiding, and waiting. The realization hit me with full force. My life, and indeed all human lives, were not random occurrences, but part of a much larger, intricate narrative, a universal story far more magnificent than any I could have imagined. I was no longer just a grieving man in a quiet suburb. I was an accidental witness to the universe's most profound secrets. The aliens' telepathic communication deepened, moving beyond our origin story and into the very essence of humanity's existence. It revealed that we were not just an accidental byproduct of evolution, but a deliberate creation, seeded on Earth. This wasn't some random cosmic event, but a carefully orchestrated act by advanced civilizations from across the cosmos. Images flooded my mind, not of a single progenitor race, but of various star systems, each contributing genetic material, unique consciousness, and spiritual blueprints. I saw cosmic nurseries where nascent forms of life were nurtured, then guided, their consciousnesses journeying across the vastness of the void to find a home. Earth, in this grand design, wasn't just another planet. It was a chosen vessel, a crucible for a unique experiment in conscious evolution. The scrolls, as interpreted through the aliens' luminous projections, described Earth as far more than a mere celestial body. It was a unique, living library of genetic and spiritual information. Its purpose was profound: to house and evolve an incredibly diverse array of life forms, with a particular focus on the development and refinement of consciousness. This wasn't just about biodiversity in a biological sense. It was about the cultivation of new forms of awareness, new ways of experiencing and understanding the universe. The alien conveyed that Earth played a crucial, almost sacred role in a larger galactic experiment, a grand tapestry of interwoven life and consciousness that stretched across countless dimensions. We were a vital thread in that tapestry, and our development here had implications far beyond our immediate solar system. Then came a revelation that directly challenged my ingrained human understanding of existence: the hidden purpose of suffering. The missing lines within the Dead Sea Scrolls, once illuminated by the alien, addressed this concept directly. Suffering and challenge in human existence were not presented as punishment or the result of some cosmic flaw. Instead, they were catalysts for growth, for evolution, and for the refinement of consciousness. Images showed civilizations that had known only ease, and how their spiritual development had stagnated. They contrasted this with other beings who had faced immense hardship and from those trials had forged deeper empathy, greater wisdom, and an accelerated path to higher states of being. The idea was that overcoming adversity, facing our fears and limitations, was central to humanity's spiritual journey, a necessary friction for the diamond of consciousness to form. My wife's passing, in this context, wasn't just a personal tragedy. It was part of a larger lesson, a challenging path designed to push me towards this very understanding. From this deeply personal insight, the alien broadened the scope to the interconnectedness of all life. A profound understanding washed over me, revealing the intricate web that bound everything together, from the smallest microbe to the largest galaxy. The alien's message emphasized that separation was an illusion, a construct of limited perception. True reality, it showed, was a unified field of consciousness, an unbroken whole where every part influenced every other part. I felt a deep, almost primal connection to everything around me. The air I breathed, the plants outside my window, the distant stars, even the alien itself. It was a feeling of belonging to something infinitely vast and beautiful, a realization that the loneliness I had felt since my wife's death was, in a cosmic sense, entirely unfounded. We are all part of one immense, living organism. The scrolls then spoke of cycles of human consciousness, vast periods of enlightenment, and equally vast periods of forgetting. These cycles weren't random. They were part of the Earth's pulse, its own breathing rhythm within the galactic experiment. The current era, the alien conveyed, was a critical juncture, a moment of potential awakening or, conversely, a further descent into forgetfulness and discord. The images showed humanity at a crossroads, with two divergent paths stretching out before us. The urgency of this message became palpable, vibrating through my very being. This wasn't just ancient history. It was a living, breathing forecast of our immediate future. Despite the grand cosmic plan, the aliens stressed the paramount importance of free will. It showed that while there were overarching designs and natural cycles, humanity's choices were not predetermined. Our collective will, our individual decisions, shaped our destiny. The future, it emphasized, was not a fixed destination, but a dynamic, co-created reality. This revelation placed an immense weight of responsibility upon me. If our choices truly mattered so much, then every action, every thought, every intention held cosmic significance. We were not puppets on a string. We were active participants in the unfolding of universal consciousness. As the alien continued to transmit these truths, its presence seemed to trigger dormant memories within me. These weren't personal memories, but ancestral ones, deep echoes within my genetic code. I saw fleeting glimpses of ancient civilizations that had once thrived on Earth, far more advanced than anything recorded in our history books. They possessed technologies that harnessed cosmic energies and spiritual practices that connected them directly to the universal consciousness. I saw their rise and fall, their triumphs, and their mistakes. It was the feeling of a forgotten heritage, stirring within my DNA, a profound sense that humanity had been here before, had reached similar heights, and perhaps had faced similar choices. This wasn't just about understanding the scrolls. It was about remembering who we truly were. Finally, a subtle yet significant warning came through. It wasn't a threat, nor was it delivered with judgment. It was a compassionate observation of humanity's current trajectory, a gentle yet firm caution about the potential dangers of our missteps and the potential for self-destruction. The alien showed me possible futures: environmental collapse, societal breakdown, spiritual stagnation, all stemming from our collective choices. It was a first warning, not of an external force coming to harm us, but of the consequences of our own actions. It highlighted the urgent need for a radical shift in perspective, a change in our values, and a collective action towards a more harmonious existence. This message solidified the immense gravity of what I was being shown. I was not just a recipient of knowledge. I was now a potential conduit for a critical message to all of humanity. The alien's gentle warning about humanity's path resonated deeply, and then its communication shifted, subtly yet profoundly. It began to speak, not in words, but through direct thought transfer, about the nature of time itself. Time, it conveyed, was not the rigid, linear progression we perceived. Instead, it was a fluid construct, a vast ocean where multiple potential timelines existed simultaneously, like countless streams branching from a single river. Humanity, it explained, was not fixed on one track. We were constantly shifting between these possibilities, our collective consciousness acting as the rudder, guiding us through the currents of potential futures. This profound concept expanded further as the scrolls, interpreted through the alien's light projections, unveiled the existence of parallel realities. These weren't just theoretical constructs or philosophical curiosities. They were tangible dimensions, coexisting with our own. Every choice we made, individually and as a species, created branches in this cosmic tree of existence. Each decision, no matter how small, led to a different experiential reality, a slightly altered version of existence playing out in an adjacent dimension. Our current reality, the alien impressed upon me, was merely one of an infinite tapestry of possibilities, a single thread in a vast interwoven fabric. The sheer scale of this revelation was staggering, making my previous understanding of the universe feel incredibly limited. Then came the most critical insight. Humanity, the alien emphasized, was rapidly approaching a crucial bifurcation point. This wasn't a metaphorical crossroads, but a literal moment in our collective history, where our choices would determine which major timeline we would predominantly inhabit. It was like standing before a massive fork in the road, with each path leading to vastly different futures for our species. The sense of immense consequence attached to this revelation was almost overwhelming. It was as if the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting to see which direction we would choose. The scrolls, through the alien's vivid projections, referenced past civilizations on Earth that had faced similar bifurcation points. Images flashed into my mind. Advanced societies that had soared to incredible heights of consciousness and technological prowess, only to collapse into dust, their echoes barely perceptible in the collective unconscious. Others had successfully navigated these critical junctures, ascending to higher states of being, leaving behind only legends and myths that hinted at their true nature. These stark examples served as a potent reminder of the stakes involved, a historical precedent for the choices that lay before us. It was a lesson from history, not just for humanity, but for all conscious life. The alien then highlighted the seemingly paradoxical, yet immensely powerful role of individual consciousness. It explained that while the collective determined the major timeline, each individual's consciousness, though seemingly small and insignificant, contributed to that collective decision. Every thought, every emotion, every action, no matter how private, generated a ripple effect, contributing to the overall vibrational frequency of the planet. It was like countless tiny lights, each one adding to the brightness or dimness of the entire world. The personal responsibility I felt was immense, a heavy weight that settled upon my shoulders. My own internal state, I realized, was not just my own. It was a tiny, yet vital piece of the cosmic puzzle. Suddenly, and without any discernible transition, the alien's communication seamlessly wove in messages that felt directly from my deceased wife. It wasn't her voice, not a physical manifestation, but an undeniable essence, a pure transfer of her love, her presence, and her unwavering encouragement. It was as if she was there, her consciousness intertwined with the alien's, affirming everything I was experiencing. She was urging me to embrace this new understanding, to trust the path that had unfolded before me. The profound realization dawned that her passing, the very genesis of my journey, was not a random tragedy, but an integral part of this larger unveiling, a guiding force that had set me on this extraordinary course. Her love, I understood, transcended physical form, acting as a beacon through the veil. The alien then clarified the nature of the synchronicities I had experienced throughout my grieving process. They were not just random coincidences, it explained, but navigational cues, precisely placed signposts along my path. They had guided me, subtly at first, then with increasing clarity, towards the optimal timeline, preparing me for this very encounter. The recurring numbers, the specific birds, the lingering sense, all of it was a meticulously orchestrated symphony, leading me to this moment. This deeper understanding of the unseen hand at work transformed my perception of reality entirely. The universe wasn't just observing, it was actively participating, nudging me towards my destiny. As the alien continued to transmit these astonishing truths, the sheer magnitude of the information began to weigh heavily upon me. The understanding that this knowledge, if properly disseminated, could fundamentally alter human perception and destiny, was almost too much to bear. It was a truth so profound, so paradigm-shifting, that it could either liberate humanity or plunge it into chaos. I felt the profound burden of becoming a reluctant messenger, entrusted with an extraordinary truth that could reshape the very fabric of our shared reality. The responsibility was immense, and the path ahead, though clear, was daunting. I knew then that my life would never be the same. The alien's silent communication shifted, and suddenly, my mind was flooded with images of potential future scenarios. These weren't prophecies of an unchangeable fate, but vivid depictions of what could happen if humanity continued on its current destructive path. It wasn't a message of doom, but a stark, undeniable warning of consequences. I saw ecological collapse, not as some distant threat, but as a tangible, suffocating reality. Forests dying, oceans poisoned, the very air becoming unbreathable. Then came visions of societal breakdown, cities fracturing, people turning against each other in desperate struggles for dwindling resources, a pervasive sense of fear and chaos. And underlying all of it was a profound spiritual stagnation, a dimming of the human spirit, a loss of connection to anything beyond immediate survival. The images were stark, powerful, and deeply unsettling, burning themselves into my consciousness. They weren't meant to scare me into submission, but to awaken me to the gravity of our collective choices. But then, as if to offer a counterpoint, the alien also illuminated a different path, a timeline of unprecedented growth and harmony. This was the path of awakening, a future where humanity had embraced its higher potential. This vision involved a radical shift in human values, away from division and towards unity. I saw compassion as the guiding principle, cooperation as the foundation of society, and a deep reverence for all life as the natural state of being. Visions of a utopian future flashed before me, not as some impossible dream, but as an achievable reality, attainable through conscious collective choice. It was a future where technology served humanity, where nature thrived, and where the human spirit soared. The contrast between these two potential futures was breathtaking, highlighting the profound choice that lay before us. The aliens' communication then shifted from purely informational to a heartfelt plea. It wasn't a plea spoken with words, but conveyed through a profound wave of universal empathy that washed over me. I felt their deep understanding of humanity's struggles, the weight of our ignorance, and an overwhelming desire for our highest potential to be realized. It was clear they were not here to intervene directly, to force our hand, but to offer guidance, to present the choices, and to empower us to make the right one. Their presence was one of immense compassion, a silent testament to their care for our species, despite our many flaws. They were observers, yes, but deeply invested ones. The emphasis now landed squarely on the power of individual transformation to ignite collective change. The alien explained that while the grand shifts happened on a global scale, they began within each person. Every individual's journey of self-discovery, every step toward spiritual growth, every act of kindness and understanding contributed to the overall planetary shift. It was like countless tiny lights, each one adding to the collective illumination of the world. The call to action was internal, a personal commitment to higher consciousness, to embodying the values of compassion and unity in my own life. I understood that I wasn't just a passive recipient of information. I was an active participant in shaping the future. The Dead Sea Scrolls, the alien clarified, were not just ancient historical texts, but a profound manual for human evolution. They contained not just religious narratives, but codes, wisdom, and spiritual technologies designed to help humanity navigate the current era. The missing lines, the ones the alien had been revealing to me, were the keys to unlocking this potential, to understanding the deeper mechanisms of our reality and our place within the cosmos. They held the blueprint for our collective awakening, if only we chose to read them correctly, to interpret them with an open heart and mind. The scrolls were a gift from the past, designed to guide us into a brighter future. As this profound understanding settled within me, the room filled with an intensified, palpable energy. It was a humming vibration that resonated not just in the air, but deep within my bones. My own body began to vibrate with a new frequency, a sense of being recalibrated, retuned to a higher energetic state. It was a physical and spiritual transformation happening simultaneously, a profound awakening unfolding within me. I felt lighter, clearer, more connected than ever before. It was as if my very cells were being reprogrammed to align with this new, expanded understanding of existence. Then, a final, vivid image of my wife appeared in my mind's eye. Her face was radiant, her eyes filled with an indescribable love and pride. It was a silent message, conveyed directly from her essence to mine. You were meant for this. Trust the path. This was a powerful emotional anchor, connecting my personal grief and loss to the cosmic revelation I was experiencing. Her presence, her unwavering support, affirmed that this entire journey, from her passing to this moment, was part of a divinely orchestrated plan. She was not gone. She was guiding me still, from a place of profound wisdom and love. The alien's ultimate message resonated within me as a direct challenge to humanity: choose wisely. The future, it emphasized, was not predetermined, not a fixed destination, but an active creation. Every choice we made, individually and collectively, shape the reality we would inhabit. The urgency to share this truth, to ignite a global conversation, became an overwhelming imperative. I knew, with absolute certainty, that this knowledge could not remain with me alone. It was a message for all of humanity, a call to awaken, to choose the path of harmony, and to consciously create a future worthy of our true cosmic lineage. The weight of this responsibility was immense, but so was the conviction that I had to act. The alien's form shimmered, then dissolved, not with a dramatic flash, but like a ripple in water. It was a gentle, almost imperceptible fading, leaving behind only the lingering, sweet scent that had accompanied its presence. The profound silence that followed felt vast, echoing with the immensity of what had just transpired. There was no dramatic exit, no grand farewell, just a quiet return to the ordinary, yet now entirely transformed space of my living room. It was the feeling of a sacred space being vacated, leaving me alone with an experience that had shattered my old reality. I sat there, motionless, for what felt like an eternity. The immediate aftermath was a period of intense silence, a grappling with the sheer enormity of what I had just witnessed, what I had just learned. My mind raced, trying to process the flood of information, the images, the emotions, the profound truths that had been telepathically downloaded into my consciousness. I felt fundamentally changed, irrevocably altered. The person who had sat in this room just hours ago, a man consumed by grief and searching for meaning, was gone. The world outside now seemed different, imbued with a new layer of meaning, a hidden depth I had never perceived before. Every object, every sound, every ray of light now held a secret, a connection to the cosmic tapestry. On the table before me, the actual physical scroll fragments remained. They no longer glowed with an inner light, but they were tangible evidence of the encounter. Their ancient parchment, now lying inert, felt heavy with untold stories, with the weight of humanity's true history. The cryptic book, the one I had found at the obscure shop, was also still there. It no longer seemed just a peculiar antique. It was now understood as a guide, a map to a hidden wisdom that had finally been revealed. These objects were anchors, grounding the unbelievable experience in a physical reality. Then, the dawning realization settled upon me. I had been given a mission. It wasn't a choice, but an undeniable imperative that pulsed through my very being. I had to share this knowledge, to be a bridge between the ancient wisdom of the scrolls and the modern world that so desperately needed it. The thought of how others would react, the inevitable disbelief, the ridicule, was daunting. Yet alongside that fear was an unwavering conviction, a deep-seated certainty that this truth had to be told. The alien's message, my wife's affirmation, the very essence of the scrolls, all pointed to this path. The synchronicities, which had initially drawn me into this journey, continued, now acting as powerful affirmations. They were no longer mysterious coincidences, but understood as direct communication from the unseen network that orchestrated reality. The recurring numbers, the vivid dreams, the subtle signs in nature, all were part of a larger tapestry, guiding me in how to proceed, confirming that I was on the right path. They were like gentle nudges, affirming each step I took, reinforcing the profound truth I now carried. An overwhelming internal drive to communicate these revelations surged within me. It wasn't just a desire, it was an urgency, the understanding that time was of the essence, that humanity needed this information now, propelled me forward. I couldn't keep this to myself. The decision to use a public platform like YouTube, felt like the most direct and far-reaching way to reach a broad audience. It was a modern-day vessel for ancient wisdom, a way to bypass traditional gatekeepers and speak directly to people's hearts and minds. Despite the alien's physical departure, a subtle, comforting presence remained. It wasn't an oppressive watchfulness, but a gentle, supportive energy. I felt watched over, guided, and deeply supported in this new mission. The knowing that I was not alone, that unseen forces were working alongside me, gave me courage. It was a spiritual companionship, a constant reminder of the interconnectedness of all things and of the profound love that underpinned the universe. And so, I began to speak to the camera, to the world, to you. I framed the encounter not as a fantastical tale, but as a call to your own awakening. I spoke of the missing lines, the cosmic lineage, the bifurcation point, and the choice humanity now faced. I posed questions to the audience, questions that had once been my own. Have you experienced synchronicities? Do you have vivid dreams that seem to carry a deeper meaning? Do you ever feel a sense of a deeper truth, just beyond the veil of everyday reality? I encouraged them to explore these ideas, to question established narratives, and to seek their own connections to the universal wisdom. I urged them to subscribe for future revelations, for deeper dives into the scroll's meaning, for a community that would explore these profound truths together. The journey had just begun, not just for me, but for all of us.